President Donald Trump signed a proclamation to implement a 25% tariff on auto imports and floated further duties on the EU and Canada, expanding a trade war and triggering threats of retaliation. For more, of course, on this conversation, CNBC Africa's Renai Moothilal is going to be in conversation with Renai Moothilal, who is the CEO of the National Association of Automotive Component and Allied Manufacturers. Godfrey, this trade war seems to be playing out at breakneck speed.
It is the story of the morning, and I suspect it's going to be a story of April, and who knows, the story for the rest of the year of 2025. And I dare say, maybe the story of the next 3 to 4 years. It's clear President Trump is interested in keeping the focus mainly on his policies, and I suspect we're going to be talking about this for a very long time indeed. Indeed, as you say, Renai is here to join us to talk about what some would suggest might be an existential threat to the South African car industry. Renai, let me get your take.
Good afternoon, Godfrey. Thanks for having me, and greetings to the viewers. I think you have probably positioned it as a very serious threat, not only to the South African autos industry, but I think a wider sector of global vehicle and component manufacturing destinations. The US is a key market. So it is a concern, but it's kind of been I suppose, a red flag for some time now under the presidency of President Trump. And yeah, I think without getting the full level of detail of, especially in the component space, what is that full list of components that will be having these tariffs applied on them, there's still an element of wait and see, but high level, definitely a huge concern.
Yeah. So I guess the question I'm asking is whether the industry will be able to survive these tariffs if they're implemented in the current form that we know has been announced, but also at the same time, the second round tariffs that the president is proposing.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we've got to acknowledge that is that the South African industry has benefited from duty-free access into the US under AGOA for a fairly long time. Our understanding of this as a Section 232 tariff is that that would supersede AGOA. I think for me the interesting thing is what happens exactly in the short term, because it's signed as of I think applicability from the 3rd of April, but there's still a month for a level of engagement and consultation. The immediate short-term impact is probably more on the US economy than on the South African economy, in that there will already be contracts in place. And what it would mean is that vehicles and components that enter the US will have the duties imposed on those importing into that country or the importers there. The reality is this is a kind of product where you cannot immediately invest, you cannot immediately start producing. There's often, for replacement of components, is anything between 12 and 18 months for investment, tooling, setup, and the like. So the short term is actually there's a high likelihood that the US economy gets hit with a level of inflation, both on the consumer side and even for the producers, without being able to immediately substitute. In terms of possibly resulting in a shutdown of the South African industry, I don't think we're at that point yet. We've got a fairly diversified export market, and I think over time, AGOA has always been super important, but the number of locally produced vehicles going into AGOA is not the full kind of basket of what we produce. There is likely to be some pain in the short term for component manufacturers who may be hit by reduced volumes as some of the vehicle exports start tapering down. But I do think the time is now for us as a sector, including our partners and those who are involved in, I suppose, the negotiations and the like, to be smart about attempting to continue to resolve the trade relationship with the US as a first priority, but also to look at finding alternate markets. And in the component space, I think here's an opportunity for us to, again, understand that greater localization of vehicles produced here in South Africa could in some way offset any potential losses into the US market.
Absolutely. And I couldn't help but remember that yesterday I saw a story saying MAN and Hamel, I think of Germany, are looking to set up a factory here. And then we also saw a story from Ford saying they were making one of their hybrids here, the Ford Ranger. And I mean, this comes right bang in the middle of all of this and creates further uncertainty. I wanted to ask the question, though, from the conversations amongst your members, what are they saying to you? Is there anybody seeing contracts being perhaps, not so much perhaps cancelled, but perhaps suspended, and plans for expansion investment being halted?
Yeah, so immediately I'm not aware of any immediate suspensions of contracts. I think the concern more comes in where component manufacturers would be entering new contracts or replacements of existing model. Okay. So immediately, not any cancellations that I'm aware of. But again, as a sector, I think we're going to enter a period where we're going to have to do some fairly detailed analysis of what exactly is in risk or under risk over the next year to 2 years, and what the mitigation strategies are in place.
Yeah. Earlier on, you said that you thought the current arrangement supersedes AGOA. I just wanted to pick up on that and ask you to explain a little bit.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, AGOA has been almost 20 years of duty-free access into the U.S. market for South African and wider African products. Yeah. And that's a really important point in that even vehicles going out of South Africa make use of industrial products coming from other parts of the African region, especially some of our immediate neighbors within the SACU space. So, the impact is just not on South Africa. It's a bit wider, and AGOA has been a key part of our trade makeup for a long time. The implementation of what we've seen in the announcement is that it's a Section 232 measure, okay, which supersedes the rules of AGOA. And the interesting point about this is it's applicable to all countries across the world, from what we picked up. Yeah. And in theory, should not then place South Africa at a competitive disadvantage to any other exporting country into the U.S. Right. In an ideal world, we find a way to ensure that South Africa remains part of AGOA, and this particular one, the implementation of it, still to see how it all pans out. And like I said, I still think that we'll see a bit more about the story until as we see what the immediate impact is on the U.S. economy. Absolutely. So, to a degree, from what you are saying, effectively, AGOA is being torn a little bit piece by piece. But final comment from you I wanted was around your hope that there might be some kind of settlement. I mean, looking at the Trump administration, looking at the ambassador who has been proposed for South Africa, and looking at the rhetoric that's coming out from the U.S., how hopeful are you that there will be any kind of settlement that will help to shield the industry as well as other industries from recriminations emanating out of this? Yeah, look, I mean, it's obvious that it's not a cut and dry thing, and whereas maybe last year we were sitting in a position where we were fairly hopeful that AGOA would be renewed with full South African participation, it's clear that that is not the case. So sitting here and saying we're hopeful is not being pragmatic enough. Having said that, there are definite benefits to the U.S. and, like I said, to countries outside of South Africa, that it does continue. It does play a key role in bilateral trade relations. And I think what's really important to understand, it's not only South Africa that benefits out of this trade relationship. I mean, there's currently a trade surplus from the U.S. side in terms of the components being imported into South Africa. I think we export to them about 4 billion worth of components, and we've got about 16 billion of U.S. components coming in here. Okay. So, in this kind of thing, you don't want to enter into the space where there's a level of retaliation, both from South Africa, from global trade partners, because all it does is it just creates levels of greater lack of competitiveness in an industry which is known for being amongst the most competitive globally because of the different areas of production. The other important point as we come to a close is that autos historically is one that is very integrated and globally run in terms of a value chain. I think it's not the smartest thing to expect a single economy is able to supply its full or 100% of its requirements in terms of something like an automotive basket of products.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been globally integrated for a long time, and I'm not sure how it's going to work in the US under this now increased tariff arrangement.
Yeah, from what you're saying, I'm picking up a ray of light, because one of the things that President Trump said, not that we can take what he says every day as what he will do the next time he speaks again, is that it's for those countries that are running trade surpluses with the U.S. where the tariffs in particular are going to be implemented. So perhaps in this instance, we might be one of the exceptions. I pray and hope. Renai, thank you for your time. Renai Moothilal, he's CEO, National Association of Automotive Component and Allied Manufacturers. I'm going to change that name for them the next time. But fascinating story, Natasha.
Fascinating story. But just to build on, what you were saying, and as we get to a close with this conversation, we are seeing the European automakers, obviously they are negative, having reacted to this. Jeep makers, Stellantis down 5.2%, Mercedes Benz down 5%, Germany's BMW down 4.4%. But we're also seeing that negativity when we look at U.S. stock futures, the likes of General Motors, 7% down, Ford down 5%. Yeah. Let me throw a caveat. Tesla gaining 1%.
Of course. Who's benefiting out of all of this? One man alone. And he's the richest man in the world already.
Well, we'll see how that market picture unfolds as investors continue to weigh these developments. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have a look at diamond beneficiation.